Hi, and welcome to the third chapter on how to build your basic quadcopter. In this chapter we are going to talk about the power system we're using and how to set it up so you can use it with the Talon Volume 2 or version 2 frame. We are using the plush ESCs with 25 amps and the NTM motors, 28, 26, 1200 kV motors, and I decided to make a really clean setup. So what I want to do is later on mount the ESC itself like this, and the wires are going to go inside the bar, inside the carbon bar, so that there are no wires hanging around. And yeah, so I already measured the length of the cables I need, and I measured 22 centimeters, which are 220 millimeters or 8.66 inches. And this is the length from the ESC up to the 3.5 female bullet connector. You can see right here. Which you're gonna need in order to connect to these 3.5 millimeter male connectors coming from the motor. So the first thing you want to do is cut your wires to the proper length, and then we are going to start soldering the female bullet connectors to the wire. So for the quadcopter you need 12 wires. As I said, I already got the first one soldered on to try it and test it out, and I need 9 more wires. Of course the colors don't matter, but I usually tend to use at least 2 colors to indicate when I have to switch the direction of the prop, that I know which wires I can change, but actually it doesn't really matter. So as you can see, I made some marks on the board to cut it to the proper length. Okay, there you have the wires. So the next step is you're gonna heat up your soldering iron, which I already did, as well as these 3.5 millimeter female connectors and some heat shrinks, and then we can start soldering. Okay, when soldering these, I usually tend to put on the heat shrink first. It doesn't really matter, and yeah, I clip it down to the helping hand. I strip yeah, just a little bit, you can see that right there. Then I take the female connector, put it into the helping hand as well, and adjust the position so it's already in there. Just like this, okay? And you don't want the wire to be bent to the side or to the other side, because this can harden up and then it's not easy to put through the quadcopter arm. Okay, next step, I'm gonna heat up through this little hole you can see right here. I'm gonna heat it up. Take some soldering wire. And then I start feeding the female connector from the top, step by step, really slow, until I see that it fills up the cup. And you can see it coming right there. And just a little bit too much, and then you start pulling the soldering iron out. and you've got the female connector soldered. Okay, now we've got all wires for the ESC connector connection soldered and put the heat shrink on. And the next step is that we use our ESCs and solder 3 wires on each ESC. Okay, so now we want to put the wires onto the ESC, so simple as that, we just attach the heat shrink first and then strip some of the wire. On the ESC it's already stripped. We use the helping hand for fixing the wire, both wires, and then bring them to the right position where I feel comfortable soldering these. And I usually put some pressure on them from each side so they are really connected by each other and not just by the solder. Okay, so by now you should have all ESCs soldered. And the next step is to feed them through the quadcopter arms, and that's what we're gonna do now. So now we start unscrewing the bottom plate. Okay, once we've got that, put the screws aside so that you don't lose them, and then you can just simply start feeding them through. Okay, and once they are on the other side, you want to make sure they come out on top, because that's where you're going to connect it to the motor. And I really made my thoughts about putting the ESCs under the board, but actually they won't fit really well, so I decided to put them out and like this. Okay. So once you fed them through, you turn your quadcopter and attach it to a motor, and yeah, you might have to reconnect them later on for the right correction of the motor, but for now it's okay to just put them together, and yeah, so you know where the wires are going to be. And you pull them back a little bit. That is it. Now you can screw on the motor. I'm just going to use one screw for each motor, because later on I'm pretty sure I have to remove the motor again for the right prop. Okay, and now you repeat this process for the other sides of the quadcopter. Now that we've got all ESCs in place and all the wires fed through to the motors, we're going to use some Velcro to secure the ESCs where we want them. And as I said, I want them on the outside, and I want them on the arm so that they stay there and in place, but are also removable. I'm going to use this Velcro. Okay, once we've got that, we're gonna use a helping hand or something else to get the plus and the minus all together in order to solder them to our main power connection. And one thing I'm going to add in this is this extra power line, which is going to connect to the KK board, and it's going to help me with the voltage. Okay, once you got all positive and negative connected, you want to make sure that they can't touch, so I usually isolate them both, and because there's no shrink wrap that's going to fit this, I'm using this electric isolation tape. Works pretty good. Now you want to bring all the servos, all the ESCs back in place. Where you want to have them. And that is it. The hardware is set. You're ready to connect the battery on the bottom. And what you want to do now is feed some Velcro straps for the battery through the bottom plate. And make sure that you have the right side down. Okay, and that is it for the moment. So once you got the positive and the negative isolated, we do have to check the motor orientation first, because otherwise we do have the bottom plate on, and then we notice that one motor is spinning the wrong direction, and we have to unscrew everything and pull out the arm, and so we do it now. Yeah, this is what it looks like. I put the ESC wires through these holes in the top plate. It's pretty handy. And to test these, of course, we got to hook them up. And as you can see, I've got the KK board, not the KK 2.0 board, because it's not in Germany right now. It's still on delivery, so it doesn't really matter. It's just for the prop and the motor orientation. And I already hooked the receiver up to the KK board, as well as I'm going to use the Hobby King 6-channel transmitter just for testing. Okay, so I hooked them up. But necessarily is that the opposite motors are spinning the same direction, and these are spinning the same direction, so counterclockwise, counterclockwise, and clockwise would be perfect. So what I do is hook the transmitter up first, turn it on, and then I turn on the Quadcopter KK board using this Turn G LiPo. And always don't do the props on first. Test without props. So now it's deactivated, I activate it. Now it's activated, confirms that, and I'll give some throttle. So what I noticed by feeling is that this one is turning counterclockwise, this one is turning counterclockwise, this one, I have to check, this one is turning clockwise, and this one is turning counterclockwise as well. So if that was my front and that is going to be my front, I have to change the direction of this motor. So I first unhook the power from the quadcopter, then I make a mark where I want my front to be. I'm just using a clamp. And now we have to change the cables running to this motor. And the way we do it is by simply flipping the quadcopter around. That's that arm I gotta change. And the way I do it is I unscrew this screw here, which is holding the motor in place. And now I'm pulling on the motor gently. I'm going to turn it around. And now I've got to change any of these two cables. So wait, I'll show you. Any of these two cables running through, to the motor have to be changed or swapped. I swapped these two. So first I unconnect this one. Then I unconnect the other one. Put it into the other female connector and connect up the rest. Then slide it back in. Back into the arm. And you have to be careful not to strip the heat shrink. It works pretty good. Now I fixate the motor with a screw. Now I'm going to check the motor orientation the second time. And of course screw the bottom plate on again and clean this mess up. That's what we're going to do now. Now we're going to screw our bottom plate back in place, keep the battery straps outside, make sure no cable is in the way of your screws, and then you can start screwing it back on. Okay, so that's what we've got. Pretty clean setup. I'm gonna screw the rest of the motor mount screws on. You can see them right here, and then that step is completed. Okay, and this is part 3 of the video. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe.